And welcome to day 5 of Mountain View Perspective, Problem Solving, and a Proactive, just a day for a proactive way. All right, well, yesterday we ended, I'll give you all a moment to come in, but yesterday we ended at the end of Ali Imran, even though the juz' continued into Surah An-Nisa. So I said that today we will continue with Surah An-Nisa as a whole. And yes, today we are covering, juz' 5. Today is 5, not 6. Today is juz' 5. And it is juz' 5 of, and it is really Surah An-Nisa, the most of it. All right, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma salli wa sallam barik ala Sayyidina Muhammad. I hope you're all well. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Ahla sahla to all of you. I hope your Ramadan is going well. It's pretty amazing that we are here on finishing up day 5 already. Subhanallah. All right. So Surah An-Nisa as a whole, I want to talk about it as a whole. It's really a fascinating thing. It's a beautiful thing that there is a surah in the Quran called An-Nisa, or women. And it doesn't deal with only women. It deals with society, community, belief, all of the different themes really that the entirety of the Quran deals with one very specific thing that is a heavy emphasis in Surah An-Nisa around inheritance, for example. And it's really interesting because inheritance law is a fascinating part of Islamic law, is a fascinating part of Sharia. And one of the things that makes it fascinating is that it's really complicated. But in its early days, the companions were surprised to even imagine that women would inherit. And if you look at Western cultures and different Western views about the world, you will find that women did not inherit. In fact, if you are an English literature fan and you read Pride and Prejudice, you will know that the whole stress and tension of the plot is that the father did not have a son, and therefore all of his daughters cannot inherit. So if they do not get married, they will be homeless. Really, that's the plot of Pride and Prejudice. I know it's more complicated than that, but that's an important part of it. And when Islam ordained that no, women do inherit, it was for some really a shocking idea. Now, we have this false myth that yes, correct, Nafisa, and then also complications of only the eldest son inherit, all this other sort of strange cultural things in the West. Now, there's a myth that says that in Islam, a woman receives half of what a man receives. And it's actually much, much more complicated than that. And there are some cases where amongst those who inherit, a woman would receive more. There are some cases where a woman is the only one to receive, and there are other cases when a woman receives less or receives and less of different fractions as well. So algebra, which I don't know about how you felt with algebra when you were in grade 7. I didn't mind it. I liked it. But of course, in grade 7, I didn't know that algebra is an invention of the Muslims. And one of the reasons of the importance of algebra was to figure out inheritance. Why figure out inheritance? Because you have to solve for X. What does X receive? Subhanallah. So, and that is in order to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to ensure that everyone who has a right to inheritance receives their right. Now, the idea that I guess I would like to communicate here is that women from day one, women in the Islamic concept, have always been viewed as full parts of Muslim society, full and complete parts of Muslim society. And it's a very important part of of the different attitude of Islam towards Muslim men and women. In fact, if you just look at the very first verse of Surah An-Nisa, and I know we're in Juz' 5, but I did say that we would do Surah An-Nisa today. Ya ayyuhan nas, ittaqu rabbakum, alladhi khalaqakum min nafsin wahida. O humankind, have taqwa of your Lord who created you min nafsin wahida, a single soul. وخلق منها زوجها وَبَثَّ مِنْهُمَا رِجَالًا كَثِيرًا وَنِسَاءً. So it's a very foundational concept that men and women are human beings that were created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and all of us together are believers, and all of us together are working together to create a better society, to be of the khulafa on the earth. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. To be here together, worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, obeying the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and helping to build a healthy society. Okay, now as we continue and we go a little further, we jump into the actual 5th juz' where we are today. That would be verse 24, just so I can have it on my English one in the same place. 1 minute. Okay. And so we're talking here about marriage. And we're talking about marriage and who to marry, who we're allowed to marry, who we're not allowed to marry, and things like this. Why does the Quran care about this? Like, why do you, as a Muslim, why do you have to follow rules about who you marry? I know that for the individual thinker of today, that's a real question, because the Quran is setting up guidelines for building a healthy society where families are based on a foundation of faith. And so children grow in a foundation of faith. The ummah grows, and so we as an ummah, foundationally faithful people, can grow healthy habits like, as mentioned in this surah, no gambling, no drinking, worship, fair financial orders for everyone. Because people will, in general, will choose to cheat and do things if they're not based in a life of taqwa. And so our faith is trying to build families and individuals of taqwa. Does it always work? Of course not, because people are people. But one of the most difficult marriages is the cross-cultural marriage. And then if you have cross-cultural plus cross-religion, where the two people really care about their religion, that's always going to be really tough. Always. And it's going to cause confusion in the children. And so we continue. The surah continues in ideas around how we manage money, that we don't take each other's wealth incorrectly. Verse 29. وَلَا تَأْكُلُوا أَمْوَالَكُمْ بَيْنَكُمْ بِالْبَاطِلِ. We're fair. And I mean, as a Muslim ummah now in Ramadan, we should all be reflecting on our money and how it comes to us. And then we continue. If you go to verse 36, and the continued saga of building a healthy community, 36, is it? Or 30? Yes. 36, وَاعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا. So here we have a whole list of how to take care of the community. And if you often read this and just sort of pass through it, I want you to take a minute and think about it now in Ramadan. وَاعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا. Worship Allah and don't join anything with God. وَالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Be good to our parents. Be good to our parents. Ya Allah, we have to be good to our parents. We need to hold our families together. And I know it's not easy. People are difficult. People are hard. But we have to hold our families together. Set your nafs aside. This is the month where you're really dealing with your nafs. Set your nafs aside and bring your family together. وَبِذِي الْقُرْبَى, also your relatives. And who? وَالْيَتَامَى, the orphan. We will find that in the Quran is very concerned about the orphan. That the orphan is not lonely and out there all alone. وَالْمَسَاكِينَ, and the poor. وَالْجَارِ ذِي الْقُرْبَى, the neighbor who's next to you. وَالْجَارِ الْجُنُبِ, the neighbor who's distant. Imagine. وَصَاحِبِ بِالْجَنْبِ, the companion by your side. وَابْنِ السَّبِيلِ, and the wayfarer. وَمَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُكُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ مَنْ كَانَ مُخْتَالًا فَخُورًا, and also to those your hands rightfully possess, which in this case were slaves. And now you should also think about people who work for you, your employees. You should make sure that your employees are treating them very, very well. Anyone who you're responsible for. Now, I saw a question here that said, what about if your wali rejects your potential spouse for cultural reasons, even though they are a pious, practicing Muslim? How do you maintain family ties while also honoring your own rights? That's a question that needs a lot of explanation, so I apologize. I'm not going to answer the whole thing. I only want to address two pieces of it. One is, when we are looking for a spouse, we want to be thinking about building a family and bringing two families together. So if one family is against it, we have to be thinking about how are we going to overcome that in the future? How are we going to work together because it's about building the Muslim family. It's not about two people's nafs. It's about building a Muslim family. And these verses continue with a lot of direction for us, a lot of direction in not being self-conceited, not being show-offy, not being miserly. الَّذِينَ يَبْخُلُونَ وَيَأْمُرُونَ النَّاسَ بِالْبُخُلِ, the one who is stingy and orders people in stinginess. Ya Allah, Ya Allah. And where this is a dangerous place to be. Don't tell people not to donate. Encourage people to be giving. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in verse 38, والذين ينفقون أموالهم رياء الناس ولا يؤمنون بالله ولا باليوم الآخر ومن يكن الشيطان له قرينا فساء قرينا. That the people who pay, who spend their wealth just to be seen. Right? These are lists of ways we are making mistakes. Surah An-Nisa is it's like a tsunami of verses teaching us how to behave, how to live with one another, how to be good to one another, how to recognize what is right and what is wrong. Because إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَظْلِمُ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, verse 40, does not wrong us in this tiniest way. We will not be wronged by Allah. Allah's justice is pure, full and complete. Full and complete. And we continue with more rules. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تقربوا الصلاة وأنتم سكارى. So here is where the Muslim Ummah was being weaned from alcohol. And I find these verses beautiful in the care of the Ummah. Because I always think about, the people of the desert, like how did they preserve their liquid except for in alcoholic ways? They didn't have refrigeration. But the harm was too much, and so they just obeyed. And then moving forward, in the same verse, we're taught and have tahara when you pray, have wudu, have ghusl when you pray. We learn how to stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the best of ways. When you're going to Taraweeh at night, remember the mountain view, the perspective. Think about it. When you go to Taraweeh, go in your best clothes. Go in clean clothes. Smell good. Go in clothes that, even if you're praying at home, put your best clothes on. You're standing before Allah, the Lord of the worlds, the one who you worship, SubhanAllah. All right, and we continue. Here we have verse 48. I was thinking about this one a lot yesterday. إن الله لا يغفر أن يشرك به ويغفر ما دون ذلك لمن يشاء. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not forgive the one who has shirk, but forgives other than that as he wills. And I was thinking about all these, the life of sin that we're in today. So many sins. And I was thinking how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's generosity of forgiveness extends to everyone that he wills. But I was also thinking, when is it that your sin drags you to shirk? And what I mean by that is we want to be careful. Don't be bold with sin. Don't be bold with Allah. I'm fine. Some people expect when they sin, they're like, did lightning hit? No, lightning didn't hit me. I'm fine. Okay, so I'm fine. It doesn't work like that. But don't be bold with sin so that as you continue and insist on that sin, you don't end up one day with a trial of faith. Because there's no trial more painful than the trial of faith. I don't care what the trial is. The trial of faith is the most painful. It's the one where every other trial no longer has purpose. Because if you're trialed with illness or exhaustion or tiredness or pain, you know you're getting reward with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're okay. You're trialed with poverty, you know Allah is rewarding you. Trialed with riches, you know you should give in sadaqah. But if you're trialed with faith, all of a sudden you're not even sure if the stubbing of the toe or anything is giving you what you need. So it is critical that we pay attention to a verse like this. And we seek Allah's forgiveness for our sins and protect ourselves from shirk with good deeds. Protect ourselves. And the next verse, أَلَمْ تَرَ إِلَى الَّذِينَ يُزَكُّونَ أَنفُسَهُم. The one who purifies themselves. بَلِ اللَّهُ يُزَكِّي مَن يَشَاءُ وَلَا يُظْلَمُونَ فَتِيلًا. Allah will not wrong you in any way. And when you say, oh, Allah, purify me, I want to be purified, Allah will purify you in the most beautiful way. And there is no zulm when it comes to Allah. There's no oppression when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Any trial you're going through is divine justice, and it's better to have a hardship in this life than the next. Always. Always better. Next page. يا أيها الذين آمنوا أطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول وأولي الأمر منكم فإن تنازعتم في شيء فردوه إلى الله والرسول إن كنتم تؤمنون بالله واليوم الآخر ذلك خير وأحسن تأويلا. That's verse 59. Now, in verse 59, we're talking here about first of all, again, how to live. We live by obeying Allah and His Messenger. And ulil amri minkum. Those are the people put in charge of us. Of course, if they ask us not to do something wrong, then we don't do it. But like we listen to our teachers and our imams, and we listen to our bosses, and we live an organized life that is where we have respect for one another, our elders. And if there's a problem, we go back to Allah and His Prophet. And we check, how are we meant to live? What is the best way to live? And that should come from ilm, not from jahl. A lot of times it comes from ignorance, where people start to say platitudes and tell people you can only live like this, you can only live like this, thereby like cutting out half of our ummah. No. It's not platitudes. It should come from ilm, not ignorance. And so even as this surah has a lot of law and rule, it also has a lot reminding us how to come back to Allah Azza wa Jal. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِن رَسُولٍ إِلَّا لِيُطَاعَ بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. ولو أنهم إذ ظلموا أنفسهم جاءوك فاستغفروا الله واستغفر لهم الرسول ووجدوا الله توابا رحيما. 64. We have never sent a messenger but to be obeyed by the people. So, if after wronging to the Prophet, if they did wrong and then they came to you and said, Ya Muhammad, and sought forgiveness of Allah, and had the messenger as well sought forgiveness for them, then surely they would have found Allah forgiving and merciful. But people didn't do that because they were arrogant. Don't be arrogant. It's Ramadan. Go to Allah. Go to Allah and ask for forgiveness. It is when we are arrogant and insisting on our mistakes that we end up in trouble. That's when we end up with great difficulty. When we were reading it today at the center, the verses are really, they're scary when you're thinking about the hypocrites and the disbelievers and the seriousness of that status and how much we really need and want to be of the believers, subhanAllah. Let's go to 94, jumping. This one is, يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا ضربتم في سبيل الله. Oh, you who believe, when you start out on a path of God, فتبينوا ولا تقولوا لمن ألقى إليكم السلام لست مؤمنا. Don't say to the one who gives you a greeting of peace, you're not a believer. Even our relationships with people are in this surah. How do we interact with people? Someone who gives you salam, don't say you're not a believer. Don't say, I don't want to be your friend. Learn how to get along. Learn how to get along. And then 95, one of my favorites. لا يستوي القاعدون من المؤمنين غير أولي الضرر والمجاهدون في سبيل الله. Not equal are the believers who stay behind in times of conflict, apart from those who are injured, and those who strive in the path of God, بأموالهم وأنفسهم, with their wealth and their persons. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts out this surah by saying, Ya ayyuhan nas, O all people, and showing us how we are foundationally equal to one another, men and women. And then, by the time we hit verse 95, we begin to understand that there is a separation of people. And that separation is of taqwa, our belief and our action. Our belief and our action. And we are called upon to do many things and not do many other things, and to follow the straight path. And then reminded, if you're thinking about reward, you're thinking about how am I successful? Well, the one who is getting up every day and struggling is better than the one who's sitting around. And so get up, get to work, make it happen. Do whatever you can to make your life the best life on this earth. Be good to the people around you. Fulfill as much of Islam as you can today and try to do more tomorrow. Be a believer. Sink into your belief. Soak into your belief. And let that belief guide you. For 97 talks about death. إن الذين توفاهم الملائكة ظالمي أنفسهم قالوا فيما كنتم. Those whose souls the angels take while they are wronging themselves. When you die, the sins you were doing in this life, you're going to see them as harm you were doing to yourself. Not things you were doing to help yourself. You're going to see it as harming yourself. In the midst of unbelief, the angels will say to them, in what state were you? The angels will ask them, قالوا فيما كنتم. They will answer, قالوا كنا مستضعفين في الأرض. They will say, we were helpless in the land. They're going to make excuses. I couldn't do what I wanted to do because I was weak in the land. Maybe they're going to say, I was a minority in America. I was a minority in Australia. I couldn't fulfill all of the rules. I couldn't pray because what would my boss say in the middle of the meeting if I got up to pray? I couldn't pray at the airport. I couldn't this, I couldn't that. But then the angels will say, if it's really true that it's the land that stops you from worshiping Allah, the angels will answer and say, قالوا ألم تكن أرض الله واسعة فتهاجروا فيها فأولئك مأواهم جهنم وساءت مصيرا. Angels will say, wasn't Allah's earth spacious enough for you to go somewhere else? We are responsible for our lives. Now, I would say about America, this is a country where Muslims live. We live as Muslims, and you should be able to practice your religion without any difficulty here. Where you are in the rest of the world, it really depends. But here is a scary, it doesn't matter where you are. Are you at home with parents are you a convert with parents who don't want you to practice? You're going to have to move. Or practice anyway. It's okay if they don't like it. We want to be of the people who are rushing towards Jannah, not the people who are sitting around. Those who are يجاهدون في سبيل الله بأموالهم وأنفسهم, with our money and our very souls. And then there's more about the prayer. Like if you can shorten it for your traveling prayer. We won't do the fiqh of the traveler here right now. But it continues. The surah continues. And if we go, let's just jump to the end because time is of the essence. And see how the juz' itself closes itself off. Again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is now describing to us the hypocrites. So it closes off talking about the hypocrites and the warning about them. And then it has a warning about who to hang out with in the middle. Who do you spend time with? يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تتخذوا الكافرون أولياء من دون المؤمنين. Don't take disbelievers as your close friends and without taking believers. أتريدون أن تجعلوا لله عليكم سلطانا مبينا. They want to have power over you. Now, listen. It's a difference between an acquaintance and someone you hang out with and someone who's your close friend. Because your close friend you share your values with. And so if all of your friends are non-Muslim, that might be why you're struggling to get closer to Allah. That might be why you're struggling to pray. Because you don't have a friend to talk about prayer with. You don't have someone who you can talk about being a better Muslim with. You are responsible for who your friends are. You are responsible to follow the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has called upon us. But the section closes with great hope. In the last verses, talking about those who, even the hypocrites, even the worst of the hypocrites, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ, except for those. إلا الذين تابوا وأصلحوا واعتصموا بالله. So even the worst, the hypocrites are the worst, by the way. They're the lowest of the low because they pretend one thing, but they're something else. Even a hypocrite who repents and fixes themselves and holds on to the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they're going to be with the believers. So there's hope for everyone. So if you don't be the one who says, I'm so bad, I can't get better. No, just by the mere fact you want to get better, it means you're not a hypocrite. So you're already doing better. So there's hope for you and there's hope for me. And I saw somebody say, you're struggling to pray at work. You got this. You can do this. I know you can. It's Ramadan. You got this. I know you can do it. You can go and ask and get yourself a little prayer card, or maybe just pop outside, pray behind the building, wherever you feel comfortable. But remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in charge, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help you. Allah will help you and reward you and fill your heart with such a beautiful feeling when you do that thing that you should do. And the last verse is ما يفعل الله بعذابكم إن شكرتم وآمنتم وكان الله شاكرا عليما. Indeed, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not seek to punish us. But if we are grateful and believe, then Allah is appreciative of our gratefulness and knowledgeable of our belief. Allahumma laka alhamd. What a beautiful jazza. I love Surah An-Nisa. It's one of my favorite surahs in the Quran. It makes me feel as a woman very seen by Allah. Very seen. So, subhanallah. Yes, if you are struggling with anything, this is the month to start doing the new things, because you are rewarded for the struggle. For the one who, and for all of you are thinking, oh, I'm struggling to pray every day. The struggle, you get rewarded for the struggle. You do a good day, you have a day that's not so good. Have a good day, have a day that's not so good. Pretty soon you're going to have more good days than not. All right? Yalla, bismillah. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Congratulations, everyone, for your 5th day of Ramadan. We had at our convert iftar yesterday 3 people who was their very first Ramadan. So if it's your first Ramadan, I extend to you my love and my support and my dua and my just excitement for you to have your first Ramadan. It's so much fun. And alhamdulillah, it's in March, it's a bit shorter than it was. My first one was in June. Alhamdulillah. All right. So as we let you know yesterday, we are at Rabata. Rabata is that's where we had the iftar yesterday. It was at the Rabata Cultural Center here in Minnesota. If you are in Minnesota, join us. We have every Thursday night an iftar. You can sign up to come to that. It's free, but we do ask you to sign up so you know how many people are coming. And we also have Taraweeh every night. There's no sign up for that. You just show up. So if you are in Minnesota or nearby, do join us. And at Rabata, we have so many programs that are there to help elevate women. We envision a rising tide of Muslim women community stewards, teachers, and leaders. And we ask you to be part of this mountain, helping us to build these mountains of khair by donating in this month of Ramadan. We're looking for $40 a month donors. So if you can be that person, we would love you to donate and become a monthly donor. Yesterday, I think I said we need 2 or 3. How many do we need every day to reach that? And I think I said, we need 3 a day. So yesterday we had 2 or 3. I forgot already. So yesterday, thank you so much. We did have 2 or 3 of you jump on. So if we can have 2 or 3 of you today also become a monthly donor, that would be awesome. Also, be on the lookout for our auction, where we're auctioning off a number of things. And also be on the lookout for our Friday matches, where we have donors who are matching for us. That's a fun thing to do. And all of the other fun things we're doing on our way to raise money, to keep up this work in this blessed month, to raise money so that all together we can be part of this work, raising hands and climbing the mountain together. Because just like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the surah we were just reading, بِأَمْوَالِهِمْ وَأَنفُسِهِمْ, the ones who strive for the sake of Allah in their money and in their bodies. So maybe you can't teach, maybe you're not at that stage, maybe you can't do this or that, but we can all give. We can all be part of that. So we'll do it together and work together in that way. May Allah bless you all, and I'll see you tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum.